Good morning. Good morning, Mr. Representative Tom Malinowski. Good morning, Mr. Representative Don Bayer. Dear gentlemen, this broadcast is based on your request to hear from me. Your caucus members for protecting the rights of freedom of Egyptians by the United States Congress. Hello, sir. I welcome everyone who sees me and listens to me. I hope to be a light to guest. In Egypt, we would like to draw inspiration from your experience for freedom, but without a civil war, of course. Here we are fighting impoverishment, starvation, and marginalization and exclusion against Egyptians from governments run by the army 7 years ago up till now. That brought Egypt's poor, yes, Egypt's poor by the international standards to exceed 99% rate here in Egypt, yes, and added to 9 million unemployed. Recently, they added 2.7 million other unemployed. To be proud that we have 11.7 million of unemployed. They placed Egypt on the brink of bankruptcy. Yes, bankruptcy, exactly. With a debt exceed the $400 billion in and out, I mean at home and abroad. We have wounds. We would like to close the wounds, to defeat the tyrant and his followers. They have shown a clear and present danger to our constitution and our Texas Republic. But if there is no freedom without blood, of course I will withdraw. I will show you, yes, I will show you this bitter experience in Egypt, the distinctive signs and pitfalls that break the social fabric in Egypt. I am Dr. Engineer Mu'taz Jahin. They call me Father of Urban here in Egypt. I'm the founder of the Texas Republic in Egypt because I'm the intellectual owner of the National Plan for the Republic of Egypt and the owner of Sustainable Development Strategy, the Egypt 2030, and the 16 sustainable sectoral plans for the state. They are mine. And I'm the owner of the tripartite social contract in the Constitution. And I'm the founder of the Constitution principles, the economic and social constituents, and the state obligations for Egypt also. Those all to achieve goals for Egyptians. I guess I'm the one who defined those goals in the text and provisions of Egypt Constitution 2014, the year 2014, and the annex to founding documents of state approving for this the subject source. Accordingly, I have foundational authority over the established authority, but has been suspended. And also my Center for Planning and Strategic Studies, binding advisor to the Egyptian government. We are the USSC. I will send you the link. But of course, the Egyptian regime circumvented my legal position and did not. Well, sir, I wasn't elected as a founder, and this is the same as the 10 founding committee and the 50th constitutional 50th founding committee also. The equality committees, the drafting committees, none of us was elected, not only. I wrote the tripartite social contract, and the referendum became the will of the people, Egyptian people. And this always happens when it is impossible to elect constitutional assembly. And my established disabled authority gives me the rights over the 3 established authorities and allows me, in case of that I see deviation or violation on the constitution or on the state's established approach, which is the sustainable development approach, in a way that poses that there is a threat to the republic or the constitution, allows me to intervene and to prevent it, or at least to correct it. Yes, if the existing regime fails to do this, I should prevent those crimes are committed against Egyptians, and that's why I express to you as a sponsor of democracy, as a sponsor of the rights and freedom, and we know that the American Congress is the one who leads this work. Here is the audio-visual blog, my blog. I use my legal position, constitutional rights, and my founding power to correct or uproot which is closer. I want to tell you, sir, that there is many laws in Egypt oblige me to disclose and oblige me to report those crimes that are committed against the nation, against the plan, against the strategy, against the sectoral plans, against the constitution. All of those were protected under the intellectual rights property law in Egypt. Prevent and protect them from change to distortion, or what was stated without permission. You can't change anything without my permission, because I'm the owner of the intellectual rights. And also, there is another law, the criminal procedure law, obliges me to report when I know the occurrence of crime. A third law is the engineering syndicate law, which criminalizes the engineer who owns an urban development plan in case of failure to report any crime committed with his work. And this law considers him concealed. And fourth law, the Egyptian information law, which extends the amount of the punishment in case the crime is reported for its detection. And as I am the owner of the founding documents, I mean the objective source of the Constitution, the state constitutionally has the authority of the sovereign legislator, because it is the creator of the Constitution and obligates the established authorities with the controls, because it expresses the absolute will of the founding authority, and also allows me to move in its scope, in its course, according to the constitutional law, to realize what can be reminded in Egypt at the present time. Also, the right to public broadcasting in audio, visual blogs is available to me by the law of the intellectual property through internet. Well, let me tell you about myself. I'm a member of United States United Nations volunteer and partner number. I'm a partner number 1898704. I'm the founding book. My founding book of the Sixth Republic in Egypt is officially registered on the DSDG Knowledge Platform reference number 213281. And I'm a partner member of the UNICEF of the United States, number 2537827. And my founding book is registered in Egypt, sold property number 2015001055, dated on March 7, the year 2016, Supreme Council of Culture in Egypt. The delivery of founding book to the state was concurrent with the approval of the Constitution during the period between the year 2013 and the year 2014 to the Ministry of Planning to to the GOPP, the General Organization for Physical Planning, Ministry of Housing, Presidency of the Republic, Council of Ministers, and others, many other institutions, without my consent or taking legal measures to extract the record of professional exploitation of the work, and then rights of Egyptians included in the plan, and in the strategy, in the sectoral plan, and in the constitution too. All have been violated due to the absence of my binding control over what is implemented by them as a binding advisor to the Egyptian government. That has not been done. In the year 2013, the launch of national projects and the return of business and interests was a required goal, really, to restore Egyptian to stability and calm in the street. Exactly. The street was learning at that time with killing and subversive demonstrations this is on the one hand, and also we wanted to transfer the written and decory paper to a reality on the ground. For the another goal on the other hand, which required giving full opportunity to 5 governors in Egypt. They violated the constitution. They made the impoverish citizens. We had the fees, the utility fees were doubled fivefold. The currency collapsed. We had a currency, it has been collapsed, Egyptian pound. The inflation increased. The debits accumulated 3 times. Real estate market stopped totally, almost. Factories closed. Egyptian army went on to reap all the fruits of development alone. Yes, alone, exactly alone. With no one participating in this case. Their kingdom, the military kingdom, and the authority on the land of Egypt, they were building this kingdom 7 years ago, along those years. But now the Egyptian army must be stopped from tampering with the country capabilities. Now it becomes necessary or a necessity to restore the fruits of development to the Egyptians. And because it violates all preventions of the Egyptian constitution related to economic or social or environmental foundations of the state without any deterrence or oversight. It was freed from any supervisory agencies or supervisory authorities, and they were racing against time in selling the assets of the state, of the Egyptian people, that the Egyptians have built over years. Not to mention the blank check that army carries and borrows from all financing institutions, home and abroad, under the name of army investment, so that these loans pay off future generations from the blood and sweat of our sons and our daughters, so that only the military can enjoy their wealth. Our goal is to correct the course, but every sinner must take responsibility for his mistakes. Responsibility begins in the year 2013 and 2014 with the seizure of the founding book and the implementation of the plan, the strategy, projects included, of course, but with borrowing and debts, not liberating the real estate wealth inherent in informal settlements located within urban and rural areas with enormous population density. The value of the land in them is very high and is sufficient once it is legalized and it is inhabited, were demolished, people move from it to new urban development areas. Transfer. It is sufficient to remove poverty from them completely and even turn them into investors by simply exchanging lands. Also, localities, the local government will harvest during this their share, what 30%, the share of the value of the public land from the streets and voids that enable them to implement all plans for new facilities and services. And in it required and ignite investments to replace them after removal in urban and rural centers to distinguish their locations within the urban blocks. And this way, the required balance between the commercial and investment and economic aspects and the social aspects was achieved, would be achieved if it were done, but it wasn't. Uh, because this is the sense of the sustainability. So the army and its employees hijacked the experiment and managed it only for its benefit and extracted the Egyptian high potential real estate wealth, and poverty was proven in the rest of the villages and slums by not paying attention to them. And the ash were poured in the eyes of oil and piles for 1% of them, and left them on its status, knowing that it is growing with a rate of 3% annually, according to United Nations. And borrowing was accelerated to exceed the $400 billion quickly towards bankruptcy. In general, if someone is accused of the money of the economy of Egyptian, he cannot do anything better than what the Egyptian army did in the 7 years of their rule. And let Egyptians, they let Egyptians steal and plunder their money. This is a shame for the protectors of rights and freedom in the world, and that the 1% of its people in Egypt live on the blood of the corpses of the rest Egyptians. They are insult to all humanity, and you are entrusted to us in the name of the truth and in the name of justice to restore the destiny of people to their rightful place. As for judicial accountability for the traitors and sellers of the nation, arrest, as we have seen, is the way for everyone who dares to enforce the law and the Constitution. The role, and here we can provide without agents inside Egypt, provided that they enjoy the same immunity on the land of Egypt. Finally, sir, we need you gentleman to give the Egyptians a path for life and freedom. You know you can. Thank you, Dr. Mu'tazili. Well, I'm back. Welcome again. Um, my second message for caucus members is some details of wasting the public money. For example, $130 billion intentional damage, and facilitating the seizure of it by foreign financing institutions and fixing it did it by violating the Constitution. Perjury of the constitutional oath and treachery to the Egyptians. The current Minister of Electricity squandered $80 billion until the year 2018, other than the benefits, of course. By defaming the Egyptian and future power stations with fossil and nuclear fuel, with the nuclear waste, are all polluted and violate the Egyptian constitution. It will be disposed with sustainable energy benefits, and its rate collapsed by 60% of the energy component in preparation for the sale. Electricity utility was carried out by the Egyptian, of course, by Egyptian army and obtained from it a huge commission and profits, of course. That was number one. Number two, the Minister of Housing. Now he's the Prime Minister. Wasted $50 billion also until the year 2018, excluding interest. In apartment and social housing plans, low income, by electing Egyptians from the benefit of financing institution, implemented and obtained, including the army of the commission, and huge profits. It is also violated the minister's self and violated the constitution, forbade construction for residents, slums. Before the demolition of village and unplanned neighborhoods, and the result was that they were thrown into the streets without a shelter. About 14 million people living in nests, ash nests, and also 40 of the Egyptian urbanism are waiting for the same fate as violators of constitution, because the Egyptian army sells the apartment from 40 till $80,000 for the poor houses, for people without income. I don't know how. As for the average income, the price for them per square meter is $3,000. This man is Mustafa Madbouli, who was in prison in the year 2011 for stealing 27 million pounds from the fund of GOPD, the General Organization for Physical Planning. He was smuggled out of prison by Hosni Mubarak's brother-in-law, and he remained outside until the army returned him as the Minister of Housing in the year 2014. The total of what the army has earned is $130 billion, business, commissions, and profits. The corruption of the commander the Navy, an officer, Egyptian army. His name is Mahatma Mish, the head of Suez Canal Authority and his economic the economic authority for the development of Suez Canal corridor. He is called Mahatma Mish. His sister Azza, and his friend Yahya Zaki, the three of them, in same crimes. But that was under the supervision of the Egyptian army, the engineering authority for the armed force in the year 2015. He wasted $12 billion worth consultations, commissions, profits, collected them from the Egyptian people and from banks. Delibe bravely harmed them to divert the corridor, the navigator for the laws over the past 5 years to reap a return of $120 million at a rate of 1% annually. Then he referred the amount as losses and debits owed by the Egyptians to be paid by taxpayers, the taxpayers who have paid this. And he violated the constitutional text related to it, so he stopped development around the Suez Channel, being satisfied with the interests and commissions of the army only, whether from lands around it or from the shipping laid to. Here's the corruption of the deforestation of agricultural lands in urban settlements. The current Minister of Housing, Asim Ghazar, in partnership with a group of generals from the Egyptian army, they violate the Egyptian constitution and they appropriate the finest agricultural lands with hundreds of acres per year. And sometimes thousands of acres per year. And builds desalination plants for water. They take the seawater to sell to Egyptian water. They want to sell to the Egyptian people water 10 times more expensive than the contracts and commissions the army gets in implementing these stations after violating the constitution by selling Egypt's historical rights to the waters of the Nile, enhancing the new industrial Nile project on the subterranean Nubian stone reservoir. To be able, to sell water from the army desalination plants at this price, about 50 pounds per square meter, per cubic meter, which constitution consider it a crime of high treason. Also, Egyptian army officers spent $250 billion, $250 billion of the Egyptian money. I'll tell you how. The Prime Minister approved it last month, and the Egyptian citizens did not receive any return from it, with the expectation of officers and members of the army and sovereign bodies only, which is considered to be sui generis of the state's resources, loans and lands, while the plan and strategy put in place for the state means that the same member of returns within 5 to 8 years. Then the president, Mr. President, he violated the constitution in Article 44 by selling the historical rights of the Nile water in the Renaissance Dam agreement in the year 2015. And deliberately forfeiting Egypt's water share to sell to Egyptian water from desalination plants, which is owned by the military, and 10 times its current price right now. The president invaded Article 32, Article number 32 of the Egyptian Constitution, which prohibits him from selling public property of the state. And he sold it at 10% of its value. 10%, yes. 10% of its value to companies affiliated with the army, and in exchange for repaying loans obtained by the army also, obtained by the army itself, and not entiring a single cent from it to the Egyptians. And this is the flagrant violation of the constitution. This is an officer in Egypt's army, with the rank of Lieutenant General Kamel al-Wazir, who wasted $20 million, $20 billion over the past 7 years on roads and bridges in violation of constitution, because they are made of material that causes 75 of the cancers, and are internationally criminal in the Basel Convention, and have no use, nor are they developed and collapsed much as soon as it is implemented in a law or in a few days. Another army officer claims to own a huge gas field that sufficient for Egypt gas needs for years, and then announced the company, the Russian Rosneft Russian company, the owner of 30% of the field, said that the Italian company Eni owns 60% of the field, and the rest of the British company BP, the 10%. So it's all a lie. The officer announces his colleague, the head of the engineering authority, in front of the Egyptians, to inform that Egyptians of the reclamation project of 500,000 fiddens on the northwestern coast of Egypt, which does not have any farm water underground. Tanks are salty, and rain falls 18 days a year. Also, there are only military-owned desalination plants that sell a meter of water for more than $3 a meter. So, gentlemen, the iron reserves in Egypt exceed 1.2 billion tons of natural resources. In the western desert, the Egyptian army refrains from extracting it because it is in the interest of the Egyptians, and enable them to produce 20 million tons of factory iron annually, reducing the price in half price, and saving $10 billion annually. It is the value of the iron import bill. The Army prohibits any legislation requiring companies in the private sector to insure workers and employees, even through half of Egyptian people whose work is related to the private sector, remains without social security. In violation of the Egyptian Constitution in Article 36. Then the army and the military president leave Egyptians homeless, eat from garbage, beans, and sleep in the shack. He is currently connected to stand. Is currently contracted to spend $32 billion on the roads and transport projects that are useless except for the army actions. Investments and commissions for its general and only wealthy people will use them in violation of Article 27 of Egyptian Constitution, which obligates him to base the economy on social justice and sustainable development. So, we need you, sir, to give us back our Egypt, for we have longed for it while we are inside. Thank you for the second message, and Dr. Montaz. Thank you.